Hi, I'm Caylum Merrick, Finance Team Leader at Momentum Wealth, and I'm joined by Emma Everett, our Buyers Agency Team Leader. Today, in this video, we're going to be discussing some tips on negotiating on properties in a moving market. Thanks for joining me, Emma.
Thanks, Caylum.
With Perth's property market heating up, we're starting to see a growing trend of selling agents not listing the price of the property and instead using terms such as expressions of interest, contact agent, or offers. Now, Emma, this can be daunting, especially for a buyer who doesn't have any knowledge of the local market. So, what are some tips that you can give our clients on how to approach this?
Absolutely, Caylum. It can be quite frustrating and unnerving for buyers going into these negotiations. The first thing we recommend is to visit lots of properties in the local area. So home opens are a good opportunity to do that, and getting to know properties that are similar in their features, for example, their age or the number of bedrooms or the use of the property is really, really important. While you can do a certain amount of research online, there's nothing quite like walking through lots of properties to gauge where this property that you're negotiating on will sit in the mix. Some suburbs have a wider variety of properties than others. So, for example, you might have development sites and townhouses and family homes all in one location. And that's where it gets really important to understand the different types of properties in an area, how they're priced, so that you're confident with what you think this particular property is worth.
Now, in addition to visiting the property, Emma, I know that online research also plays a big part in this process, which brings us nicely to our second point. So, Emma, how can online research help prospective buyers with their negotiating?
Caylum, I agree. Online is often the first place most of us go to do any kind of research, and over the last 10 years, the amount of information available to property buyers online has just expanded exponentially. So that's the good news. Property search websites, as well as having lots of photos of properties, also have sometimes suggested price ranges. You might be able to find information on other properties that have sold nearby and how recently, to gauge market movements and to understand what's happening in that area. Local councils have a lot of information available about properties through their own mapping systems, from zoning to any special regulations, even things like bushfire risks or flood zoning you can find online. The challenge for buyers is knowing which information is relevant and also knowing which information to acquire prior to looking at a property to rule it out, or which information to look at prior to placing an offer. And that's where a buyer's agent can help buyers not just to access information but also to filter that information and to do it quickly in a market where properties are going under offer, sometimes within 7 days of hitting the market.
Our next point is to be aware of the selling agent tactics around the information they're providing to prospective buyers. Now, I hear you talking a lot about this with the buyer's agency team, Emma, so how can this affect the negotiating of a property?
Absolutely. Look, the selling agent's job is to represent the property in the best possible light, to foster as much possible buying competition, to drive the offer prices up. And so that is their role, and understandable that many selling agents don't want to miss the opportunity of a rising market. No one wants to find out they undersold a property, which is why these broad price ranges are so popular. So often if you visit a property as a buyer, you'll be given a price guide. You might be given a list of recent sales in an area, and that can offer some really valuable information. But it's important to know that the selling agent has compiled that information and filtered it to represent the property in the best possible light. So that might mean, for example, excluding sales that were detrimental to the price they're looking for. There might be some emotional sales in there where there were special circumstances which push the price up. And unless you've checked every comparable sale, you can't necessarily be confident that they're all completely comparable on all of their different attributes. For example, zoning or school zones, or even the age or the renovation of a property, may have played a big part in the price that it achieved. And knowing that information will help you assess what price you'd like to pay. And so again, that's where buyers agents can help dig around at those prices, do our own appraisal, independent of the selling agent, and really look at as well the moving market and making sure that the timing of the sales we're considering reflect what's happening. And of course, for buyers that are from outside the area, whether we're from interstate or perhaps from regional WA, or even working a busy job and living in another part of Perth, getting access to that information quickly can be really challenging, which is where we step in.
Our final point, and one that I'm very familiar with as the finance team leader, is to be prepared to act when you identify a suitable property to buy. Now, obviously, starting with your finances, you want to make sure that you're finance qualified and understand everything the lender's going to be looking at in assessing your application. Also, we note that in the current market, lenders are taking a while to assess and approve applications with the assessment delays and I guess the residual impacts from COVID and what's the stress that's had on the banks. Now, Emma, from a buying perspective, how can being finance qualified help the situation?
Absolutely, Caylum. Finance plays such a big part in how a seller sees a buyer's offer to purchase. In many cases, a buyer will be competing with 2 or 3 or more other buyers, and so having finance pre-approval reassures the seller that you can carry it all the way to settlement. Even if you are not competing with another buyer, we're still asking the seller to take their property off the market for 2 to 4 weeks while we gain finance approval if they accept our offer. So that approval goes a long way. Likewise, other terms like the deposit are also important to consider, especially when you're competing with other buyers. And definitely when we're placing an offer subject to finance, we need to then place the formal application for the loan straight away. So it's not 2 to 4 weeks to decide on a lender or decide what you're doing with your finance. It really is to gain that formal approval with the bank. So that process needs to be well underway before we're placing any offers on behalf of buyers.
Emma, thank you very much for joining us today and providing some great insights on negotiating in a moving market. If you're watching this video today and have any questions about the content we've covered or would like to find out more about how a buyer's agent can assist you in your property purchase, please head to our website to find out more information.